Welcome back, Warriors. We're back with another episode of Vigor Warriors 2. And another topic I wanted to talk about was another one of those questions. I'm going to put my phone up a little higher here. Another one of those questions that we had from our listeners. And once again, thank you so much for subscriptions, comments, likes, those type of things. I appreciate all of that. And please continue doing so as we go through this. But the comments I get are always very positive and always helpful in trying to do different topics. And here's another one that we kind of focused on, and the question was, how do you react, how do you handle these type of images and things around us? And it's really a good question in these modern times that we have here, really focusing on how to deal with these types of things that are around us. So let's take kind of a dive into this a little bit and see what we can find out here. So as you look at this, guys, back in certain countries do deal with this in a little different way. They require people to have a lot more dress and things on, so they're not showing a lot of their physical traits, and so the temptation is not as great. In the United States, however, because we're such a free type country, and I think there's been problems with that myself, and maybe one day I'll do a video on all that, but I think the movements that we talk about that happened in the 70s and been going on for a long time are not conducive to people, because all it does is kind of allow people to go ahead and kind of show off everything that they have, and as a result of that, it becomes a really very tempting type of market out there for men and women. And so when you look at this, the bottom line really is that temptation is all around you. And in the United States especially, that's the case, especially in the Western world. And so when people, dress the way they do, when things happen, and images, and people can make billions of dollars on selling images to people, or people can sell, themselves on things like OnlyFans and all the Tinder and all this kind of stuff, it becomes a very image-based market. And everything is based on branding and marketing and publicity about a person. And so basically what you have is you have people who are imaging themselves through their images and how they look. And when you look at musicians doing that, when you look at movie stars doing that, and you look at athletes doing all this kind of stuff, now you're looking at just multiple stimuli in where you're at. And I don't care if you have your phone, I don't care if you're walking in the park, I don't care if you're looking at a computer, you're going to see images of advertisements all over the place. You're going to see people walking around, and so much of it is because people want attention as well. And so the attention part is a very high ego for people. And so as they get attention this way, the people around you will also, wear things. I'm not just talking about women here, I'm talking about men and women. They wear things in order to become more, to gain more notice, more attention. And so how do you battle this, in the world that we live in? How do you battle all these kind of stuff to be able to deal with this, right? Well, one of the things that's important, obviously, is to get rid of all these things as most you can. You get rid of that, get rid of those things on computers. If you have files, go ahead and get rid of those type of things. Another thing is obviously your phone. You're going to have to watch the pictures and things that you have on there, because those type of things can really kind of get you back into that mental pattern. And once again, the idea is that you want to avoid any kind of mental pictures of things you can avoid. This is the thing about brahmacharya and celibacy and retention that you have to kind of think about, is the fact that you don't even want to give thought to these things, because the thought can kind of fester, the thought can be in your head, and all of a sudden now you're focusing on dwelling on it, and then dwelling on it becomes more of than the possible action eventually when you do this. So as we look at this, the whole idea is that you don't want to even create the process and start it by even giving into those type of things. And so one of the things I recommend, and I'll call it the 2-second rule, and I've heard people do the 5-second rule and other things like that. I think you have to do 2 seconds. And what I mean by that is, as soon as you see something that catches your eye, you count to 2 and try to move past it, right? Get away from looking at it. So if there's a person that comes down the street that looks very attractive, and maybe they have short pants on, or they have something like that, you take 2 seconds and you move past it, right? Keep going. Same thing with an image and advertisement you see. If you can click off of it, great. If If you can't, take 1, 2, and move back off of it. If you can learn how to do this, now this is a mental kind of trick and a mental type of approach you can take. If you can take your mind and start looking and saying, okay, I'm going to refocus my attention. Yes, I gave my attention to this for 2 seconds, but then I'm moving past it. Now, it will get better. Now, once you start implementing this, it will get better. Now, of course, once again, if you want to do that with a special person, that's your control. But see, this type of technique allows you to gain more control of yourself, and the control and discipline is really important. It's not a matter that you can't do it. You're choosing not to do it, choosing not to go ahead and dwell on this image you saw. You're choosing not to give money to some people on OnlyFans, because they're showing you images themselves. Guys, think about that for a second. It's only images. It's only an image. But people will spend tons of money on this kind of stuff because some of these people are making $90,000, $80,000 a month on these things. Obviously, people are paying for them. So when you think to yourself, why does it happen? Well, it happens because people get caught up into that image, and it's almost a fantasy to the point where they just can't, they're addicted to it at some point in time. But using a technique like this, a 2-second technique, gets you to the point of saying, okay, I'm going to refocus right away. Every time I see something like that, I'm going to refocus away. This way, it allows you to move past something mentally, and that's a key aspect of it. And then certainly as time goes on, you're going to be able to get even stronger and maybe even reduce it to 1 second if you want to. But when you look at this thing, it's really a key of trying to focus your mind, try to condition your mind to move away from looking at those type of things. Now remember, guys, you look at, and I read this in one of the Brahmacharya books that I had read, but if you're sitting there, the other thing you can do is this. You can sit there and just, if you're looking at a person, realize that person, no matter how attractive they may be looking to you, is really just a matter of bags and bones, right? They go all bags and bones. I think this is the comment that was made in the book. Okay? And it's interesting because if you look at those things like that, all of a sudden now that person doesn't look as appealing. Because they all are a bunch of bones, right? That's all it is. They may look attractive bones, but they're still bones. And so if you condition your mind in a different way, then all of a sudden now you're not taking this as seriously. And guys, you have to kind of start with that. Don't take it as seriously. Think of that. The other technique that I think has been talked about, and maybe it was also talked about with Brahmacharya training as well, is the fact that you look at, in this case, a woman as your mother, or a man as your dad, right? You're focusing on this person and taking them out of the reality of this. Let's think about that for a second, okay? Obviously, you would never want to think of your mother or father in that type of way. But if you attribute and you transfer every person you see to your mom and dad, you're going to have the same reaction. And why is that? Well, your brain has been conditioned saying, wow, this is my mom, right? She's a different type of woman. Well, this is my dad. He's a different type of man than all these other people I see. Now, I see that as well, because a lot of times if I'm looking at something, I'm saying to myself, this person is probably as old as my daughter. And again, I change my as soon as I think of that, I change myself, wow, so that's gone. Because once again, you're associated with something that you just don't, it's just, it's a different type of thing. And your mind is focusing different, whether it's your sisters, your daughters, or your mother, or it's your father or brothers, things like that. All that mindset is different. It's still a person, but you're looking at that person differently, right? So whether you take the bag of the bones type of thing approach, whether you take the parent sibling approach, something like that, it is something that can condition your mind. And if you take that 2-second approach as well, all of a sudden now you're going to gain more control of those things around you. And those things will appear. I mean, our society is a very free and open society, and the downside of that is that you're going to have images all over the place. You're going to have people all over the place. But continue looking at this in a certain way. Condition your mind to not look at this as something that's going to kind of fester and build a nest in your head. You can get the bird to fly over, but don't let it nest in your head, because that's going to then lead to more behaviors, and eventually you're going to actually go ahead and relapse or do something to lose your energy, and you're back at square one again. Okay, all right, so I hope this helps. But that was a good question again, is how can we deal with some of this, and the 2-second rule is something I'd recommend. Until next time, battle on.